The morning I heard my son's fiancée say, "Once we're married, he won't need that job anymore." I was sitting 3 meters away at a laminate reception desk with a styrofoam cup of Tim Hortons going cold beside my keyboard. She was pacing the lobby of the Dartmouth Sportsplex in her workout gear. Phone pressed to her ear, not once glancing at the man checking in members behind the front counter. Not once. Which was how things had been going for about 3 weeks by then. My name is Roy Dempsey. I'm 63 years old, born and raised in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. I spent 31 years as a structural engineer with the city of Halifax. Bridge inspections, building permits, drainage assessments. The kind of work where nobody cares what you think about the weather if you haven't read the soil report first. I retired the winter before last. My wife Colleen had been looking forward to it for years. So had I, honestly. Right up until about month 4, when I discovered that retirement felt a lot like being gently removed from the conversation mid-sentence and told to go sit down somewhere quiet. Colleen has her book club, her garden, her church choir. She fills her days without effort. I'd reorganized the garage twice by February. The second time, I moved everything back to where it had been the first time and pretended I hadn't noticed. A neighbor of ours, a fellow I'd known since our kids were in Scouts together, mentioned that the Sportsplex was looking for front desk volunteers. A few mornings a week, check in members, answer the phone, hand out pool passes. Nothing complicated. I said yes, mostly to give myself somewhere to be at 7:30 in the morning. Colleen didn't say anything when I told her, but she looked relieved in a way that told me she'd been quietly waiting for me to find something useful to do with myself. 3 weeks in, that's where I was when she walked through the automatic doors. She didn't recognize me. That part still catches me, even now. We'd met exactly once. My son Adam's 34th birthday dinner at a restaurant on Barrington Street, about 6 months earlier. I'd had a full beard then, the kind you grow during a quiet winter, when you have nowhere particular to be. I'd shaved it off in January. I was also wearing a staff polo shirt and a Sportsplex cap pulled low on my forehead. And to be fair, and I'm trying to be fair when I say this, she had spent most of that birthday dinner with her phone in her lap, glancing at it between courses. I hadn't taken it personally at the time. I took her membership card, scanned it. The name on the screen said Serena Crawford. I looked up. Crawford. That was the last name Adam had mentioned. As in, Serena Crawford. She works downtown at a wealth management firm. She's really something, Dad. The woman already had her earbuds back in. She was moving toward the fitness studio without looking back. I sat there for a moment with the scanner still in my hand. Then I put it down and decided not to say anything. Not yet. It wasn't that I planned anything deliberate. At first, I genuinely thought I'd mention it to her the next visit, make it a funny story. "Oh, you'll laugh at this. Turns out I've been checking you in for 3 weeks." But she came back on Thursday, and then the following Monday. And each time, she walked through the doors, already talking on her phone, already somewhere else. And each time, I said, "Good morning," and she answered without looking up and kept walking. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't something a little funny about it. Colleen nearly knocked over her chair laughing when I told her. "She's been checking in with you for weeks and has no idea?" "None whatsoever." Colleen pressed her hand over her mouth. "Roy, that is either very sad or very funny." "Little of both," I said. Little did we know then which direction it would go. The lobby of the Sportsplex has a particular quality in the early morning. It smells like chlorine and floor wax, and there's a low hum from the vending machines near the change rooms. Most people come in, check in, and go straight to wherever they're headed. A few linger. Serena lingered, not out of friendliness. She had phone calls to make. She'd pace near the window that looked out onto the parking lot. Sometimes she'd sit on the bench along the wall, still talking, one earbud in. I wasn't straining to hear anything. The lobby wasn't large, and her voice was clear. I'd hear fragments while scanning cards, answering questions, processing day passes. The first few weeks, I didn't think much of it. Business calls mostly. Client meetings, scheduling, portfolio updates. She worked at a wealth management firm downtown. I knew that much from Adam. The calls sounded exactly like what they were. Then one Tuesday in early March, I heard a different kind of call. "He's still on the fence," she was saying. "But once we're actually married, he'll see it differently." I kept my eyes on the computer screen. Dad already talked to the HR people. The role is there waiting. It's just a matter of getting Adam to say yes. I made myself breathe slowly. Adam was a junior high school teacher. Had been for 9 years. He coached the school's hockey team, ran a science club on Thursday afternoons. He called me every couple of weeks, sometimes more. Not once had he mentioned anything about leaving teaching. Not once had he said a single word about a job offer from his future father-in-law's firm. When Serena finished her call and went into the fitness studio, I sat at the front desk for a few minutes, trying to talk myself out of what I'd just heard. Maybe I'd missed context. Maybe Adam already knew and was genuinely considering it and simply hadn't brought it up with me. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe. That evening, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat across from Colleen in the kitchen. She knew something was wrong before I'd said a word. 35 years of marriage builds a particular kind of fluency that doesn't need language. "Sportsplex?" she asked. "Sportsplex," I said. I told her what I'd heard. She listened without interrupting, which was how I knew she was treating it seriously. When I finished, she wrapped both hands around her own mug. "What did Adam say when you asked him about it?" "I haven't asked yet." "Why not?" I didn't have a clean answer for that. Partly because I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Partly because the last time I'd pushed Adam about something, a financial decision years ago that turned out just fine, he'd pulled back for months. He was gentle-natured but stubborn in a quiet way, a lot like me, which was probably why we'd sometimes had to find our way back to each other slowly. Colleen looked at me. "Pay attention before you say a word to anyone." Good advice. Better than I deserved, probably. Because, if I'm honest, part of me already wanted to be angry. Not at Serena specifically. At the feeling of something being arranged without anyone bothering to inform me. And fear, in a father, can curdle into anger faster than you'd like to admit. So I kept going to the sportsplex, checked in members, answered the phone, handed out towels, said good morning to everyone who walked through the door. Serena came in Tuesday and Thursday. The calls continued. 2 weeks later, I heard about the house. She was talking to someone, her mother, I thought, based on the tone, about a property in Bedford. Nice area, lake views, detached garage. She'd already found it online and had an appointment with a real estate agent scheduled for the following Saturday. Dad said he'd cover the down payment, she said, in the same casual voice she might use to say she'd grab the bill at lunch. "We just need Adam to come look at it." I picked up a paper clip from the desk and set it back down. Adam lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Dartmouth. He'd told me once that he was thinking about buying something small in a year or two, something manageable on a teacher's salary. He'd said it with a quiet pride I recognized immediately, because I'd felt exactly the same thing when the place was at 31. The particular satisfaction of something that's yours because you worked for it and chose it yourself. A house where someone else covered the down payment would never carry that feeling. I knew that without having to think too hard about it. That kind of gift always comes with a foundation built on someone else's decisions. And I'd spent my whole career looking at foundations. I knew what happened when they weren't sound. That week, I called Adam. Kept it easy. We talked about the Mooseheads, the November weather, how his hockey kids were doing in their season. Somewhere in the middle of it, I said, "How's the job going? Still happy where you are?" A short pause. "Yeah, Dad, why?" "Just asking." "You're not just asking." My son knew me too well. Always has. It was both a comfort and an inconvenience. "I heard there might be some other opportunities you were looking at," I said carefully. Silence. Then Serena mentioned something about her dad's firm. "We're still talking about it." "Still talking about it." Not I'm thinking it over. "We." "You interested?" I asked. "I don't know. The money's considerably better. Money's not everything. He laughed. Not a mean laugh, an affectionate one. The laugh of a son who's heard a particular thing from his father more than once. I know, Dad. You love what you do. I know. Those kids. Dad. His voice was patient. The patience that means please stop. I'm an adult. I can figure out my own career. And that was the end of that part of the conversation. I stayed up until Colleen went to bed and then sat in the kitchen in the dark for a while. I wasn't angry at Adam. I was angry at myself for saying too much too fast, for making him defensive before I even had the full picture. My wife had told me to pay attention first. I'd lasted about 12 days. Vince kept that same calendar open on Friday mornings that we'd been keeping for years. Retired RCMP, same posting in Halifax his whole career. We'd known each other since our daughters played ringette together back in the 90s. The kind of friend who listens to the whole thing before he says a word. We met at a diner out near Burnside. I told him everything. The job at the firm, the house in Bedford, the things I'd heard from behind a front desk that nobody remembered I was sitting at. He took a long sip of his coffee. You're looking for the smoking gun. Maybe. You won't find one. I frowned. What do you mean? Meaning none of this is illegal. None of it's even obviously wrong. He shrugged. Rich family wants their daughters set up a certain way. They're making arrangements. Happens all the time. Adam doesn't know. Vince looked at me steadily. Then that's the actual problem. Not what they're planning. That he doesn't know. I drove home turning that over in my mind. Not what they're planning. That he doesn't know. It wasn't that Serena's family had money and strong opinions about how things should go. People come from that kind of background. It wasn't that they wanted Adam earning more. That wasn't malicious on its own. The problem was the pattern. Every decision moving forward, the career, the house, without Adam at the table. As if he were a variable to be plugged into an equation that had already been solved. I thought about Colleen when we were first starting out. The house we bought in '89, small as anything, smelled like someone's cat, needed the electrical completely redone. We'd stood in the driveway disagreeing about whether the foundation crack on the east corner was cosmetic or structural. It was structural. I was right. Colleen has never once let me forget that she agreed with me anyway, but we'd stood there together. Every decision, including the bad ones, had been ours. We'd argued as partners. That was what I wasn't hearing about Adam's future. Then came the Thursday morning that removed any remaining doubt I'd been carrying. Serena came in a little after 7. She looked tired. Instead of pacing near the window, she sat on the bench along the wall. Her voice was lower than usual, but the lobby was quiet that morning. She was talking to someone close, her sister maybe, from the tone. The agreement is fine, she said. Dad's lawyer wrote it. It's protective. I kept my eyes on the computer and my hands still. I haven't shown it to Adam yet. A pause. I know. But the wedding is 4 months away. There's still time. Agreement, lawyer protective, 4 months. I'd spent my entire career working around contracts and specifications. In that language. Protective almost always means protective of the person who wrote it. Serena went into the fitness studio. I sat at the front desk for a while without moving. Then I picked up my styrofoam cup, found it empty, and set it back down. Over the next few weeks, I gathered what I could. Nothing illegal, nothing complicated. I wrote down dates and details after each morning shift. I verified the job posting at the Crawford family firm through their public website. I confirmed the Bedford property was listed through a local real estate office. I compared timelines. The story those facts told together was simple and consistent. A future being constructed around Adam rather than with him. Meanwhile, he and I remained close but careful. Every conversation felt like we were both navigating around something we'd agreed not to name. Colleen found me one evening in the garage, not doing anything. Just sitting on a sawhorse, staring at the pegboard where my tools hung. She walked over and leaned against the workbench. "You miss him?" she asked. meaning the easy version of Adam and me, the version without the weight of this between us. Yeah, I said. She was quiet for a moment. Whatever you decide to do next, make sure you're doing it for him. She paused. Not because you're angry. That stopped me. Because the truth was, I was angry. Not just at the situation. At myself. For not knowing sooner, for letting it go this far, for that phone call where I'd pushed and watched my son close the door between us. Colleen squeezed my shoulder and went back inside. One Monday, something shifted in a small way that I've thought about since. Serena arrived earlier than usual. The lobby was empty. She came to the desk to ask about renting an aquatic lane for a swim club she was considering. While I looked it up on the computer, she waited. Actually stood there. And for a moment, she looked at me. Not enough to recognize me, just enough to make eye contact with another person. You work here often? Just small talk. Few mornings a week, I said. I'm retired. Gives me somewhere to be. She nodded. My dad's been retired 3 years. Drives my mom absolutely crazy. I smiled. Mine drove my wife crazy for a solid 8 months. She laughed at that. A real laugh, quick and unguarded. Not the polished version of herself I'd been watching through the lobby window. I printed off the lane rental information and handed it to her. She said thanks and looked at me for one more second. Still not long enough. Still not clearly enough. And then her phone buzzed and she was gone. I thought about that moment for days afterward. Because Serena wasn't a cartoon. She wasn't sitting somewhere plotting against my son. She probably believed she was building something good, using her family's resources, being practical, creating security. People who grow up with that kind of financial safety net often move through life making arrangements as a matter of course, because that's what they'd watched their parents do. Love and control can look identical from the inside of a plan. I knew that because I'd almost made that same mistake myself. When Adam was 25, I'd been so certain I knew what direction his life should go, that I'd nearly pushed him somewhere. He'd never asked to be. He'd stopped me. Quietly, firmly. The same way he'd stopped me on the phone that Thursday afternoon. I needed to remember that lesson better than I'd been remembering it. Canadian Thanksgiving comes in October, and the Crawfords host it at their house in the south end of Halifax. Harbor view, stone exterior, the kind of home that announced certain things about a family without anyone needing to say them out loud. Serena's father moved through his own house with the easy confidence of a man who was accustomed to being the most prepared person in any room. He wasn't unkind. He was simply very used to being in charge. There were perhaps 20 people at the table. Extended family from Serena's side. A few of her parents' close friends, Colleen and me. Adam sat near the head of the table beside her, and he looked happy. That was the hardest thing about the whole evening. Looking at my son and seeing that he was genuinely happy. I almost said nothing. There were 2 or 3 moments during dinner when I thought, leave it, let it unfold however it unfolds. Maybe you've read this wrong. Then her father stood. He tapped his wine glass and delivered a speech that was warm and polished on the surface. He talked about family, about how glad they were to welcome Adam, about the future. He spoke about the opportunity at the firm as though it were already settled. Adam's acceptance, a formality that would be handled in the coming weeks. He mentioned the property in Bedford, said they'd help the young couple find something wonderful. Said it with the quiet satisfaction of a man who'd organized a successful outcome. He described the location, the layout, the views. I watched Adam's face. I saw the precise moment he heard Bedford named out loud as something already decided. His expression didn't break. He was too composed for that, but something shifted behind his eyes. A man quietly recalculating. Serena was watching her father, not Adam. Her father raised his glass, to family and to new beginnings. Everyone raised theirs. I set mine down. After a moment I said, not loudly, just clearly, Adam. He looked at me. Did you and Serena pick the Bedford house together? The table went quiet. Not dramatically, just the way a room goes still when something unexpected is said calmly, and there's no obvious script for what comes next. Adam looked at Serena. Serena looked at her father. Her father opened his mouth. I spoke again, same even voice. I'm asking my son a question. I'd like to hear him answer it. Adam said carefully. We hadn't decided on anything yet. The position at the firm, I said. Have you accepted it? He shook his head slowly. Serena's father set down his glass. Roy, I think there may be some misunderstanding here about the timeline. I'm not confused about the timeline, I said. I'm asking whether my son was part of the decisions being announced this evening. The room stayed very still. Adam turned to Serena. Serena. She looked at him. When were you planning to tell me? He said. She started to answer. About the house, he continued. About the job. About the agreement. Something moved across her face. More like the expression of someone realizing a conversation they'd expected to control had already left the room without them. I reached into my jacket pocket and placed 3 pages on the table in front of Adam. Nothing secret, nothing obtained wrongly. Printed timelines, verified dates, the job posting from the firm's public website. I'd shown them to Colleen the night before. She'd read every word and then looked up at me and said quietly, You're doing this for the right reason now. Make sure you keep it that way. Adam read all 3 pages. No one spoke. When he looked up, his eyes went to me first, then to Serena. This is the first I'm hearing about most of this, he said. It wasn't finalized, she said. I was going to talk to you. When? No answer came. The agreement exists, he said. Not a question. She didn't deny it. Adam folded the pages carefully and put them in his own jacket pocket. He looked at Serena for a long moment, and what I saw in his face wasn't anger. It was something quieter and sadder. The look of a man doing arithmetic in his head and not liking what the numbers said. I love you, he said. I need you to know I mean that. Her eyes were bright. She nodded. But I need to be a partner, he said, not a component. No one said anything further of consequence. The dinner wrapped up early. People said their goodbyes with the careful politeness Canadians manage in rooms that need to be cleared without anyone acknowledging exactly why. Coats were retrieved. Cars were found in the dark. Colleen and I drove home, mostly in silence. Somewhere on the bridge, she reached over and put her hand on mine on the geared shift. That was enough. The weeks that followed weren't easy ones. Adam called me 2 days after Thanksgiving. Not to thank me, not to be angry at me, just to talk. We talked for an hour about everything and nothing in particular, which was its own kind of language between us. He and Serena ended the engagement 6 weeks later. Quietly, privately, the way my son handled most things in his life. He told me on a Sunday afternoon, and he sounded, underneath everything, like himself. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah, he said. I think I needed to see it for myself. If you just told me what you heard, I don't know if I would have believed you. That landed somewhere deep. I couldn't have understood it if someone had just told me. He was right. I'd nearly made that mistake. Going to Adam directly, laying out what I knew, expecting him to trust my version of things over the woman he loved. That conversation would have ended with him defending her and shutting me out for months, and I'd have lost both the argument and my son in the process. The hard truth was that the listening, the patience, the waiting, none of that had been strategy. Most of it had been fear. Fear of pushing too hard. Fear of being wrong. Fear of losing him either way. But it had kept me from making things worse. Sometimes the right thing happens for the wrong reason, and you just have to accept that. Come spring, Adam renewed his teaching contract. He told me one of his grade 8 science students had placed in a provincial competition. He sounded prouder of that than anything I'd heard him say in years. He started looking at condos in Dartmouth, small ones in his price range, in neighborhoods he'd picked himself. He found one near the water, close enough that you could smell the harbor on the right kind of day. We went together one Saturday morning to take a look. The blinds were slightly crooked. The kitchen floor had a subtle grade to it that I noticed the moment I stepped on it, the way you do after 30 years of reading buildings. I crouched down and had a look at the baseboards, checked the corners, stood back up. Foundation solid, I said. Adam smiled. That's what I was hoping you'd say. I still volunteer at the Sportsplex on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. The Tim Hortons still goes cold before I remember to drink it. I still say good morning to everyone who comes through the door, whether they look up at me or not. Some of them look up, some of them don't. I've thought a lot, since all of this, about what it means to pay attention. Not surveillance, not suspicion. Just the simple act of being present and quiet and watching how people move through the world when they think no one important is watching. The thing I've come to believe is this: the people in the background, the ones at the front desk, behind the wheel, handing you your tray, we see everything. Not because we're looking for anything, because we're simply there, and you've forgotten to look back. And occasionally, that turns out to matter more than anyone expected.